It's 7:10.
And you're listening to Morning Report on RNZ National. 80% of New Zealanders want tougher rules to protect rivers, lakes and streams from pollution, according to the results of a nationwide poll commissioned by Fish and Game. The poll was conducted by Colmar Brunton in early December. Fish and Game's Chief Executive Martin Taylor joins us in the Wellington studio. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Why the need for a survey? Surely we know all this. This is mum and apple pie type stuff.
Well, it's not something that we always focus on, but we need to know how many Kiwis actually believe we should need stronger regulations and more regulations. And so we conducted this survey and it came back that 82% of people believe we should have tougher regulations to solve what is a problem of our generation.
What were the key worries that came out of the survey amongst the respondents?
Well, I think the key worry is that they're just concerned about they can't go down to their local river or stream, catch a trout or an eel, go for a swim without getting sick. And, for most Kiwis, that's something of a birthright, and it seems to have been lost, and we've got to do something about fixing it.
Did you ask them what sort of measures they want to see taken?
No, the survey didn't go into that depth. We just asked whether they wanted stronger regulation and would they consider if that regulation impacted on intensive farming. And they came back with 82% said yes, if we're happy with stronger regulations, even if that impacts on intensive farming.
So that implies that intensive farming, in fact, needs some significant curbs put on it.
Yeah, there's certainly some intensive farming practices that we've seen over the last probably decade, which have caused a lot of the problems that we've got. And I don't think it's beyond the realms of reasonableness to expect that to be pegged back so that we can actually stop the further degradation of our lakes, rivers and streams.
Do you see the measures that have not been taken or that have been taken by the farming industry as being insufficient?
Well, a lot of them are based around voluntary measures. Your farm management plan, voluntary this and voluntary that, backed up by commitment. So
you want to see that made mandatory?
Absolutely. The days of voluntary approaches to freshwater quality are gone. We can see that because the water quality is still going down. So what we need now is some mandatory regulations enforced by regional councils and making sure that that fixes the problem. Well,
you point to local councils. Are they the ones who are lax in enforcing the rules and who are too generous in allowing the consents?
A lot of the regional councils have vested interests in there. I mean, you look at Horizons. We've been fighting Horizons for 10 years. We've won at every court and tribunal, and yet they haven't changed anything what they're doing. Southland is now looking at their regional plan, and they're fighting tooth and nail to make it easier for farmers down there. And then you've got Canterbury. You've got to ask yourself, why do we have 1.3 million cows on the Canterbury Plains when we know the aquifer there is being polluted? So there's all these areas where the councils need to step up and do their jobs.
Yeah, but these are industries that are vital to the economy. They're actually what's paying, for the studio. They're paying for the schools, for the hospitals. You can't actually put too many curbs on them or all of a sudden they become uncompetitive.
Well, it's about balance, and it's about balancing the environmental concerns and impacts of those industries with the economic benefits. Now, we're not asking for all these lakes, rivers and streams to go back and become pristine. All we want is just to wind it back maybe 15 to 20 years to say that the pendulum has gone too far. The boom in white gold that was pushed by the industry 15 years ago has had such a great impact on water quality. We need to do a rebalance, and I think most Kiwis agree with us.
So what do you make of the government's efforts so far? It's got national standards on fresh water coming out next year and a host of other sort of measures that have been discussed. Are they doing enough, and are they doing enough soon enough?
Well, the coalition government certainly has the mandate to do more than what has happened in the past, and hoping at the middle of this year their national policy statement on fresh water and their national environmental standards will come out for consultation, and we're expecting that they will address the big issues and put in place measures that we think that will stop the further degradation of fresh water.
Well, Big Milk, it carries a lot of influence and punch around here. Do you expect them to push back? Will they limit what might be achieved?
Well, the mandate of Big Milk is to make sure that they continue doing what they're doing regardless of the environmental consequences, while telling us otherwise. So certainly they will have an impact in what happens. But, when you've got 80% of Kiwis saying enough is enough, then the mandate for the government is pretty strong. I can't see any political party being able to be successful in 2020 unless they come out with a credible plan to fix what is New Zealand's biggest environmental problem.
Yeah, but there are differing and varying degrees of, should we say, commitment to these sorts of issues, aren't there? I mean, there's a sort of a more laissez-faire attitude in the past from previous national governments than perhaps you would see from Labour Green coalition.
Oh, absolutely. But let's be fair, both parties have dropped the ball, and both main parties have dropped the ball over about 15, 16 years. It happened under Helen Clark and it continued under National. But you'd have to say any party that wants to be in power in an MMP system has to fix what is New Zealand's number one issue amongst Kiwis.
Who pays? Who's going to pay the bills?
Well, there has to be a reset in terms of intensive farming. I think the number of cows on the land and the intensity of how they're farmed will have to change. So someone has to take a haircut somewhere. But the government's role is to balance that. And at the moment, we think that the coalition government is on the right track. What they come out with is yet to be seen, but something has to be done.
Yeah, but who takes the haircut? Is it the industry? Do the taxpayers have to chip in? Central government? Local government?
Well, all of those parties have a part to play. I mean, I certainly think that the industry is going to have to peg back their profit expectations. Local government has to put some more money in. And yeah, even if there is some measures of central government money to help the transition, we're open to all of those things. All we want to see is that in the next 20 years that our rivers are in a better state than they are now.
How much of a political issue do you want to make this at next year's election?
We're going to make it a political issue at next year's election, but that's not going to be that hard because it's the number one issue for Kiwis at the moment. So it's just about maintaining that issue in the forefront of their minds for 2020.
Yes, but the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and 82% wanting tougher penalties is the road paved with good intentions. It needs more than just that.
Oh, absolutely, it needs more than
it needs political action, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And it needs people such as yourself and your organisation to exert it.
Oh, there's loads of groups who are worried about this. I Choose Clean Water, Fish and Game, Greenpeace. But we don't really need to keep pushing it anymore because it's number one issue for Kiwis. And every time they want to go down to their lake, river or stream, they're having to check on a website to see whether there's cyanobacteria or they're going to get infected with E. coli or antibiotic-resistant E. coli. So until that changes, Kiwis' attitudes aren't going to change to this issue.
So do you see your role as having to keep the politicians honest as they look at these issues?
It's one of the roles of Fish and Game to advocate for fresh water, and that's keeping everyone honest. And regional governments, they're the ones who have certainly a mandate now to make the change that they should have made probably 10, 15 years ago.
Thank you for your time this morning. That's Martin Taylor, who is the Chief Executive of Fish and Game. It's 18 minutes past 7.
New Zealanders are being urged to stay inside, drink lots of water and limit alcohol this week as temperatures are set to soar. The coasts of the North and South Islands are expected to swelter in heat.